Hello everyone, I am Naresh Chaurasia. I'm here to talk about Core Java. You can find me at messagefornaresh@gmail.com. We are going to look at variable scope and understand what is scope of a variable in Java. The agenda of this discussion is going to be, we will look at class scope, we'll look at method scope, we will look at loop scope, bracket scope, and then finally scope and variable shadowing. So now if you look at your screen, we have a class. As you can see, name of the class is my class. It starts with a bracket here and ends with a bracket here, right? So inside that you can have member variable scope or the members which are declared in the class. Then you have a method. Inside method, we define local variables, and then you can have a block like an catch block, which starts with this bracket here and ends with this bracket here. So don't worry, I will explain all of this with an example to you in some time. So if you look at this diagram, this clearly explains the concept of scope. So in order to understand this, let me go to my drawing board and explain it in more details. So if you look at this diagram here in front of you, you can think of this class which is starting from here up till here as this outermost block starting from here till here, right? Now inside that you can have a method, let's say, which starts from here and here, right? So this is a method which starts from here and here. Or you can have another method or a block which starts from here and here, and inside that there is another block which starts from here and here, right? So we will try all of this with the help of an example, but before that, let's say in outermost block I have A, inside this I have B, right? Then inside this I have C here and I have D here, right? So let me write all of these variables in an example for you so that we can understand the concept of scope properly. Okay, so as you can see, what I have done is I have kept Eclipse and the diagram screen next to each other, and I'll write a code to explain this concept. So I'll right click here and I'll create a new file. I'll say COPES scopes, right? Now, what I'm going to do here, I'll create one more class. I'll call it class house, open bracket, close bracket, right? Now you can think of this outermost box or the outermost rectangle as you see here as house or A, right? This is the outermost rectangle here. Now inside this, I'm going to define a variable A as it is here. So I'll say int A, I'm going to keep it uppercase, right? And then for this particular box which contains B, I'm going to define a method. So I'll say void method method1 open bracket close bracket, and here I'll say int B, right? Now for this box which is containing C, I will define one more method, void method2 open bracket close bracket. Here I'll define int C, right? And for this innermost block which contains D, I will define a block with open bracket and close bracket, and here I'll say int D. So we are allowed to create a block or a section with the help of open and a close bracket in Java. Now let me go ahead and give here value 10. Let me give it value 20. Let me give it value 30. And here I will say 40. Now, in order to understand this, how it works, as you can see, the outermost block which is having value A, it will be visible to B, right? So this block can see what is here, right? And this block can also see what is here. Here meaning this particular value, right? So within this block or the method one, I can say system dot out dot println. I am able to access the value of A here, right? Why? Because this is a block B, which is basically method one. Method one can access what is outside the block, which is the class in this particular case. Also, since I am within the block or the method, I can always access variable B, right? So if I were to run this program and call the method one, it will display the value of A for me and it will display the value of B for me. So let us do that. For that, what I'll do, I'll say public static void main. I'll say string str, open bracket, close bracket. I will create instance of this class. Now you can have this class in a separate file altogether, but I have put it in the same file so that it is easy for you to understand and see what I'm doing. I'll say house equal to new of house, right? And then I'll say house dot method one, right? So if I call this, it will call this method, display these values of A and B. A is 10 and B is 20. So let's run this program and see. Right click, run as Java application, right? So I can see the value of A and B displayed as 10 and 20 for me. Now coming to this method 2, which you can consider to be this block which is containing variable C, I can simply say, okay, I'm trying to copy this here. I'll copy this and here I can easily say print of C, right? And also I can display the value of A as well. Now again, this is a block, which is this particular block containing C. This block which contains C will have access to the value which is in this class, which is a variable A, and of course it will have also access to C because it is in the same block. So if I run this program now, it will display value of A, B, and let me not call this method. I'll comment this for now. I'll just call method 2. So it will display value of A as 10 here and C as 30. So let's right click and run this program. We get the value of A as 10 and C as 30 here, right? Now if I try to access this variable B, which is in a different block, so let me copy this and paste it here for you. If I try to access B, so before we run that, you will see that the scope of this variable B is within this block here, where I'm moving my mouse, this square box, and C, and this block which contains C is here, right? So since they are two different blocks, this particular box or block cannot access anything which is inside the other block, right? So therefore this particular piece of code, the statement at line number 18 will not compile, and therefore I will have to comment it, right? So this block cannot access any value which is in another block, or in this case another method. Now if we use the same concept and come inside this block, so this is another block where it starts here and ends here, right? So here I can say I can access A and C, of course. Why? Because the inner block has access to the content of outer block. So what I mean by that is, let me remove some of this so that it is easy to explain. So now I am in this block here, the one containing D. This can access the content what is inside this block and also within the class, right? So here I can display the value of A and C and of course D also, because I am within that block. So I can display A, C, and also I can say display the value of D, right? Now if I run this program, what will happen for the time being, I want to comment this so that we can just see the output of this innermost block here. So it will display the value of A, C, and D for me because I'm calling this method, which is method 2. It will display the content of this block. So as I have already said earlier, you can define a block in Java by opening and closing curly braces. So if I run this, I'll get output of A, C, and D, which is 10, 30, and 40. So A is 10, C is 30, and D is 40, right? Now, if I come out of this block, which is a statement or a line after this closing bracket, if I try to access D, it will not be accessible. Why? Because the scope of this particular variable D is within this block, which starts at 21 and ends at line 27. So I cannot do this. I have to comment it. So basically this variable, which is a class variable, is also sometimes known as global variable. Global means it is accessible to all the methods, and the variables within a method is known as local variable. As you can see, it is local to this particular block, and what you define inside this method is local to this particular method or block, which is starting from here and ending here, right? And simultaneously, or similarly rather, I should say, the value which you define in this block, which is in D, is only visible in this particular block and not visible outside of this block. So I hope with this example, the concept of variable scope is clear to all of you. This is a global, or I can call it as a class variable. We'll talk about class variable in more details when I talk about static modifier, but for now you can call it as a global variable, and the values which go inside methods are local variable, and we can define it in blocks also by using opening curly braces and closing curly braces, which becomes another block. So we have looked at class scope, loop scope, and bracket scope. So the bracket scope is basically this particular bracket that we had used, right? Now let me come back to the slide, and we are going to look at loop scope. So for that, I'll create a for loop, and let us see how it works. So inside this method, I will create for int I equal to 0, I is less than 5, and I plus plus, open bracket and close bracket. Inside this I can say, so let me copy this line, system.out.println of I here. Now the scope of this I is only within this bracket, which starts from this and ends here, right? If I try to access this particular variable I outside of this block or this scope, it will give me an error. I cannot be resolved to a variable because the life of I is only within this particular braces or this particular block. This is known as loop scope. Same is true for while loop and do while loop as well. Finally, let us look at what is scope and variable shadowing. So I will comment this, or I'll delete it as I don't need this. So let's say I will come back to the diagram here on my drawing board, and let's say if in outermost class I have a variable A defined, right? And as I have explained already, that within the method, wherein this is a method here, I can access the value of A, right? Now what if I also define one more A here? I'll say int A equals to 100. And in this case, if I try to display the value of A now, so let's try to display that. I will comment this as I don't need the output of this for this particular example. So if I try to display the value of A by running this, by calling, this is method 1. So I will uncomment this and I will comment the second method. Let's run this program. Right click, run as Java application. So you will see that the output of value A equals to 100. That means the local variable, it is actually shadowing the global variable, right? So whenever there are variables, one within inner block and one within outer block, and if you are inside the inner block or using the variable A inside the inner block, then the one in the inner block will shadow the one in the outer block. So this is a concept of scope and variable shadowing. That's all in this video. I hope you enjoyed this session. Do not forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel and leave your comment in the comment section below. Thank you.